As the oil continues to spill in the waters off Louisiana, politicians and economists are starting to consider the short and long-term effects of this disaster. The fishing industry in the Gulf is obviously the loser here, but the sheer size of this problem could lead to a multi-billion-dollar problem that lingers for years to come. Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management, is here to discuss the impact and what it means to you. Good morning to you, Joe.
Hi, Stacy.
Not a very happy subject to be talking about. Obviously, the shrimpers, the fishermen feeling it right now, but tourism is feeling it right now as well.
Oh, yeah, and BP has said that they would, reimburse the shrimpers and any other verifiable costs, but this thing is spilling over, and some estimates put it as at an economic and environmental disaster level equivalent to a Category 5 hurricane going into the Gulf.
Category 5 hurricane, which is a pretty big deal. This impact is going to be felt not just from the people we talked about, but the drillers, more cost to them because they're going to have to increase their safety. I mean, is that a good or I don't think anybody feels sympathetic when you hear the drillers are going to have to put more money into safety issues.
Right, and really at the bottom of this, there's a loss of 11 lives, so we can't forget about that. And, the safety expenditures are going to have to go way up, not to mention extra check valves on these things so that this kind of thing will hopefully never happen again. And let's not forget that it's still gushing as we speak, and they're hopeful that today's fix will do something by the end of the weekend, but it's still not a given.
We'll see if that happens. Now, a lot of people wonder, Joe, because we've got so much oil that's just filtering into the Gulf of Mexico, does that mean necessarily that gas prices are going to go up?
Good question. To me, it's a sign of the economic recovery perhaps not being as robust as some people think it is. And what I mean by that is that if people were filling up their tanks left and right and using a lot of gasoline, this little interruption would cause a major move in gas prices. In fact, it's done nothing to gas prices short term. I think that's a little bit of a different story long term. We'll talk about that in a minute. But people simply are hunkering down right now, and at what is usually the kickoff of the summer driving season, we're actually consuming less oil now than we were 2 months ago.
And simply because the economy is still not back up. Do you think that this is enough to stall an economic recovery?
By itself, I don't think so. Greece and some of the problems over there are the big story that are roiling markets right now. And if you put that together with a disaster like this and enough things come into play simultaneously, it can definitely set us back. And we really don't know what the full cost of this thing is yet. There could be just a lot more shoreline cleanup than we ever expected, and just different industries like the Florida tourism industry being affected indirectly here.
Let's talk about some positives that could come out of this. It's hard to imagine, but there may be. What are those?
Yeah, I think so. It gives a little more credibility to the argument of alternative and renewable energy. And, if you think back, people, even alternatives such as nuclear, people were afraid of a nuclear disaster. Well, guess what? The good old fossil fuel has turned into the worst case scenario here. So I think it balances things out, and it will add more credibility to some of those other initiatives. And, on the negative side is a little bit less exploration. Just 2 weeks ago, Obama said, okay, we can drill off the Atlantic coast. Now they're reconsidering that. And all of this long-term might lead to just less oil available on U.S. shores and more dependence on Mideast oil, which could be a problem for us.
Yeah, I noticed that you had up there Mideast summer turmoil.
Yeah, it's an interesting time on that front, and the big part there is that we're kind of committed to pulling out of Iraq by August of this year, maybe leaving 50,000 or so people behind. And again, the situation isn't totally stable there. That's our main source of oil. So if you've got Iran, roiling things up, that could interrupt the flow of oil a lot more than one rig in the Gulf of Mexico. Add the two things together, and you've got a recipe for, a potential problem in the gas tank.
Uncertainty, to say the least.
Certainly.
All right, Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management. Thanks for being here, Joe.
Thanks, Stacey.